Imagine landing in an entirely new country, right? You've just walked out of the airport.
Yeah, you're totally exhausted.
Exactly. You're exhausted. You've somehow navigated this massive transit system and suddenly find yourself sitting at a dining table.
And you're starving.
Oh, absolutely starving. But before you've even had a chance to, like, open a menu or place an order, the table in front of you is just rapidly covered in dozens of tiny, intricate plates of food.
Food you definitely did not ask for.
Right. You didn't ask for it. And all around you, the entire society just seems to be operating at an absolute lightning speed. The waiters are practically sprinting.
Yeah, the language is just flying past your ears.
Like a blur of unfamiliar syllables.
Yeah.
And you realize you have to somehow navigate the completely unwritten rules of this new world just to get through a simple Tuesday night dinner.
Which is incredibly jarring. You're paralyzed.
You really are. You sit there thinking, how long before I break a rule I didn't even know existed?
Yeah.
But, and here's the really fascinating part, what if I told you that the key to unlocking an entirely new culture, the secret to surviving that overwhelming speed, could literally be found in a single plate of grilled pork belly?
I mean, I would say you're about to introduce our deep dive for today.
Exactly. So today we are looking at a really fascinating viral dinner conversation between two expats in Korea. And it turns out the way they eat tells us everything we need to know about how to increase your understanding of a foreign land.
It really is a remarkable piece of footage. We're looking at a video from the YouTube channel called Awesome Korea.
Yeah.
And it features a Japanese MC named Nanase and a rapidly rising Filipina singer named Dorado. They're just sitting down for Korean barbecue.
Right. Sounds simple enough.
It does. On the surface, it just looks like a really fun eating vlog. But if you watch closely, like if you really pay attention to the emotional subtext running beneath their entire conversation, you see something profound.
What stands out to you the most?
Honestly. You see the genuine vulnerability of these artists. There's this immense amount of hype surrounding Dorado's career right now, which we'll totally get into later.
Oh, we definitely will.
But what we actually see at this table is the shared camaraderie of being foreigners in a new land. They're finding common ground in their shared confusion, their shared triumphs, and just the profound psychological effort it takes to adapt to a place that operates completely differently from the homes they left behind.
And I really want to unpack the specific mechanics of that adaptation today. I want to look at the how-to of this interaction.
The practical steps.
Right, because adapting isn't just about having good intentions. It's about learning the linguistic hurdles, the actual dining mechanics, and the literal social survival skill.
Yeah, the unspoken rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's look at the very first thing that happens when they sit down. Before they even talk about the weather, before they talk about the food, they engage in a highly specific data exchange.
Which happens so fast.
Within seconds, literally within seconds of saying hello, Nanase asks Dorado how old she is.
Yeah, and Dorado sort of playfully asks her to guess.
She does, but they don't linger on that game for very long. They immediately lay the facts on the table. Nanase was born in 2001. Dorado was born in 2004.
It's such a quick moment, but it really is the cornerstone of everything that follows.
How so?
Well, that single exchange of birth years instantly builds the framework for their entire dynamic. By establishing that she was born 3 years earlier, Nanase instantly adopts the role of the oon-nee.
The older sister.
Right, the older sister, and Dorado automatically becomes the younger sister.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Because to an outsider especially, a Western outsider who's used to leading with something like, so what do you do for a living?
Oh yeah, totally different.
Right, leading with what year were you born might seem overly direct, almost intrusive. But this is the fundamental mechanic of Korean introductions.
It's not optional.
No, it's not. Age dictates the entire framework of the relationship. It's not just a number on a passport. It physically alters the language you're going to use.
That's a great point. When we talk about it altering the language, we mean that quite literally. The verbs actually conjugate differently depending on whether you're speaking to someone older or younger.
Wait, really? The verbs change?
Oh, absolutely. If you don't know someone's age, you're essentially trying to play a game of chess without knowing which pieces are which. You are expending a massive amount of mental energy just trying to figure out how to structure your sentences so you don't accidentally offend someone.
So it's like finding your exact coordinates on a map before you can safely start navigating the conversation.
That's a perfect analogy.
Without those coordinates, every single sentence is a potential misstep. But I have to admit, I'm a bit skeptical of that.
How so?
I mean, doesn't establishing a strict hierarchy right away feel a bit stifling? Like, as an outsider, I would think that being boxed into the older sister or younger sister role immediately would create anxiety.
You'd think so, yeah.
Right. Doesn't it feel like you're suddenly trapped in a set of behavioral expectations?
It's a highly logical assumption, but you really have to reframe how you view those expectations. It's actually about removing ambiguity.
Removing ambiguity.
Yeah. Think about going to a dinner party where you have absolutely no idea what the dress code is.
Oh, I hate that.
We all do. You're stressing out, you're wondering if you should wear a suit or if jeans are okay. You show up and you're just anxious.
Right.
But the second the host says, hey, we're all just in sweatpants, your brain completely exhales.
Oh, that makes total sense.
The cognitive load just vanishes. When you don't know the rules of engagement in a new culture, you expend so much energy just trying to guess how to behave.
So by setting the age, they skip all that guesswork.
Exactly. Once the oon-nee dynamic is set, nah-nah-seh knows exactly what is expected of her. She knows she's the older sister, which carried this subtle duty of care. It means she takes on a bit of a guiding role.
Maybe she takes the lead in ordering.
Right, and it grants her a certain conversational authority. And on the flip side, Dorado knows she is the younger sister, which allows her to be slightly more deferential, but also playfully respectful. She can lean on nah-nah-seh a bit.
I see. So the rules are clear, which ironically gives them the freedom to actually relax and connect on a human level.
It's a brilliant system for reducing social friction, really.
It's not about superiority. It's about defining responsibilities so nobody has to guess.
Exactly. And you can see a visible wave of relief wash over both of them the exact moment those numbers are shared.
And once that social foundation is securely poured, the two women can finally turn their attention to the reason they're actually there, the food.
Yes. And the visual atmosphere of this scene shifts immediately.
Oh, the video is amazing here.
If you're watching the vlog, the cinematography is just incredibly vibrant. It's that classic eating broadcast style, completely designed to make your mouth water.
Oh, it worked on me.
Right. You see the bright red meat, the vivid green lettuce, the condensation on the soda cans.
Yep.
It really highlights the absolute center of their interaction.
So they start looking at the menu and they go big.
They really do.
They order 3 specific types of pork. They start with 1 serving of samgyeopsal, which is the classic thick-cut pork belly. It's got those beautiful, distinct layers of meat and fat.
It looks so good.
And then they order 1 serving of makgoji, which is the pork collar or neck meat. It's a bit leaner, very tender. And they finish it off with 1 serving of gabrisal, the pork cheek or skirt meat. And that one has this incredibly unique, chewy texture.
It's a serious amount of food. And Dorado actually mentions that she has a slightly weak stomach.
Yeah, she prefers to eat a little bit at a time.
Right, but she justifies this massive order by saying it's healthy protein.
Which is a great excuse.
It is, and it's a wonderful moment of shared enthusiasm. Nanasewa asks Dorado if she usually eats a lot, noting that Dorado actually missed breakfast.
Setting up for a big lunch.
Exactly. Their shared excitement over the incoming protein creates this unified mission. But the conversation quickly shifts from the meat they ordered to the overwhelming amount of food they didn't order.
Yes, which is where the real cultural differences lie. Because before the main meats even arrive, the table is absolutely flooded with side dishes.
The banchan.
The banchan. This brings us to the profound cultural shock of the banchan. I mean, this is something every single foreigner experiences the first time they eat in Korea.
It's unavoidable.
Dorado actually recounts a story about her very first day in the country. It was her 18th birthday. She went to a traditional Korean restaurant with her family, and she experienced absolute astonishment at the massive volume of free banchan that just suddenly appeared on their table.
It's such a relatable story for expats. She describes her parents looking at the table in complete disbelief.
They didn't know what to do with it.
Right. They were asking each other if they were actually supposed to eat all of it or if it was just for display.
Like a centerpiece.
Yeah, they honestly thought the restaurant had prepared a massive party spread specifically for her birthday. Because in the Philippines, as Dorado explains, the dining mechanics are completely different.
How does it usually work there?
Well, food is typically served in one large communal bowl where everyone eats together from a central dish. The concept of dozens of individualized, intricate, and entirely free side dishes it doesn't exist in her native culture.
Let's really think about the economics of this for a second, because it breaks the fundamental understanding of how a restaurant works for most of the world.
It really does.
Think about the last time you went out to eat. If you wanted a side of fries, it was, what, $5?
At least.
If you wanted a small side salad, it was $7. Everything is itemized.
Every single thing.
Now imagine sitting down and the waiter just drops 15 tiny, beautiful dishes on your table. Pickled radishes, fermented kimchi, seasoned bean sprouts, tiny dried fish in a sweet glaze, steamed egg, savory pancakes.
My mouth is watering just thinking about it.
Right. And none of it is on the bill. And if you finish one, they just bring you more.
It's amazing.
Nanase immediately relates to Dorado's shock, but she comes at it from a Japanese perspective.
Right, because in Japan, the dining culture is highly itemized, especially in places like an izakaya. If you want a small side dish of edama, you order it and you pay 400 yen for it.
You pay for every single plate.
Exactly. The idea that a restaurant simply provides an endless array of small plates at no extra charge is a massive departure from the economic mechanics of dining in both Japan and the Philippines.
Where does that tradition even come from?
The Banchan culture is this unique, deeply ingrained expression of Korean hospitality and agricultural history. It comes from a time when meat was scarce, so the meal was built around rice and whatever preserved vegetables you had. But now it's evolved into this incredible display of generosity.
And what's really striking is how you can see the pure joy this abundance brings to both of them.
Oh, absolutely.
If you watch their micro-expressions, the moment the table fills up, their eyes widen, they lean forward, they do these small, spontaneous little dances in their seats.
The happy food dance.
The happy food dance, exactly. The food acts as a universal language. It completely bridges their distinct cultural backgrounds and creates an environment of shared prosperity.
It really does.
But here's the thing about Korean barbecue. It's not a passive experience. It's not just about receiving food. It requires active participation.
You have to do the work.
Right. Dorado points out that if you want to eat samgyeopsal, you are almost always required to order a minimum of 2 servings.
Which is a significant structural rule of Korean dining. It emphasizes that this is a communal activity. You are not meant to eat barbecue alone.
It's a social event.
Yeah. Dorado mentions that because her schedule is so erratic and she frequently eats alone, she rarely gets to enjoy a samgyeopsal unless she specifically invites a friend or attends a company dinner.
The physical setup of the restaurant itself practically demands community. The grill is built directly into the exact center of the table. You're all gathered around a central fire.
Exactly.
And having that grill right in the middle of the table leads directly to a highly specific cultural test.
It's a cooking test.
The meat arrives raw, the grill is hot, someone has to cook the food. Who is responsible for taking the tongs?
Traditionally, grilling the meat is an act of service. In Korean dining etiquette, this task is usually performed by the youngest person at the table, the maknae, or by the host who organized the gathering.
So it's about respect.
Yes, it's a way of showing respect to your elders or your guests so they can simply relax and enjoy the meal without doing the work.
This act of cooking for the table perfectly sets up one of the most interesting dynamics of their lunch, because Dorado is the guest of the show, right?
Right.
And she's the younger of the two. But despite her status as the invited guest, she doesn't hesitate. She confidently reaches out, takes the tongs, and takes the scissors.
She just goes for it.
She starts expertly placing the thick slabs of pork belly on the grill, managing the heat, and cutting the meat into perfectly uniform, bite-sized pieces.
Nanaseha is actually a little surprised by this. She thanks Dorado, but she notes that as the host of the show, she should probably be the one grilling.
Right, because it's her channel.
Exactly. But Dorado completely deflects. She points out the cultural rule that the youngest person usually handles it.
Ah, using the rules to her advantage.
By taking charge of the grill, Dorado is doing something highly sophisticated. She isn't just telling Nanase that she understands Korean culture. She's physically demonstrating her high level of adaptation.
It's a brilliant display of the how-to she's learned. She tells Nanase that when she first arrived in Korea, older people always grilled for her at company dinners because she was the foreigner and the newcomer.
The guest.
Right. But now, 2 years later, she's internalized the mechanics so completely that she effortlessly takes over the duty.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, her behavior displays immense confidence. But it's a quiet, service-oriented confidence.
How do you mean?
Well, taking care of her Unni by cooking the food is a profound show of affection and respect. It shows how deeply she has embraced the underlying values of her new society. She's reducing the burden on her host and actively increasing the shared enjoyment of the meal. She's basically saying, I know how this world works now, and I've got this.
I love that. And just like grilling is a communal act of respect, the way you physically consume the food carries its own hidden rules of politeness.
Oh, eating is just the beginning.
Right. The culinary tests don't stop once the meat is cooked. We get to the mechanics of eating it, specifically the art of the sam, the lettuce wrap.
The sam is an art form.
It really is. Dorado takes a crisp piece of lettuce, adds some grilled onions, dips the freshly grilled meat in sauce, adds some raw garlic, and creates this massive, intricate wrap.
And this is where we see another layer of cultural internalization. Dorado demonstrates to the camera the proper way to consume a sam.
Which is?
You do not bite it in half.
Yes. She eats the entire massive wrap in a single, continuous bite.
That's impressive.
I look at eating the sam in one bite like a compressed zip file of flavor.
A zip file like that.
Yeah. If you bite it in half, you're unzipping the file wrong. The garlic falls out. The sauce spills everywhere. The structural integrity of the bite is completely ruined.
It's a mess.
The rule isn't just about politeness. It's about culinary engineering. You need the crispness of the lettuce, the heat of the pork, and the bite of the garlic to hit your palate all at the exact same time.
Plus, biting it in half is actually considered a bit of bad luck in Korean culture.
Wait, really? Bad luck?
Yeah, it signifies breaking the fortune that the wrap represents. The sam is like a little bundle of good luck.
Wow, I had no idea about the luck aspect. So when Dorado successfully executes this massive bite, Na나세 is visibly impressed.
Totally.
Because in the Philippines, as Dorado explains, there is no inherent culture of wrapping meat in leaves to eat it. It's a completely acquired skill for her.
Right. Successfully engineering and eating the sam in one bite is like a badge of honor. It proves her authentic appreciation for the food culture. Furthermore, it's fascinating to watch their body language while they eat.
The hand gestures?
Yes, both women frequently cover their mouths while chewing or laughing during this process.
Let's talk about those hand gestures because they are very specific. Covering the mouth is a highly internalized East Asian nonverbal cue.
Exactly. It denotes politeness, modesty, and a desire to not impose on the other person. Even as they are engaging in this highly communal, somewhat messy, very tactile act of eating barbecue, they are meticulously maintaining these subtle physical boundaries of politeness.
It's a balance.
It is a constant, quiet negotiation of space and respect. You also see Nanase utilizing intense eye contact and constant verbal affirmation saying, "ah," "wow," and nodding enthusiastically while Dorado speaks.
I noticed that she's very engaged.
This is a classic Japanese conversational trait known as aizuchi. It is specifically designed to show the speaker that they have your absolute, undivided attention.
So we have this incredibly beautiful, complex layering of behaviors at the table. A Japanese host using aizuchi to show attentive respect, a Filipina guest demonstrating Korean maknae grilling etiquette, and both of them adhering to broad East Asian standards of modesty while eating a sam.
A lot to keep track of.
It is a highly complex, deeply internalized social dance. But taking charge of the grill and navigating these quiet manners requires a certain level of confidence.
Definitely.
And this perfectly sets up the contrast with another area where Dorado had to drastically alter her behavior to survive. And this one involves making a whole lot of noise.
Yes. We are talking about interacting with the restaurant staff.
The contrast of these quiet, polite table manners with the extremely loud environment of the restaurant is striking.
It's night and day.
The dining efficiency of a Korean barbecue restaurant relies on constant, immediate communication. You need more water, you want to refill your banchan, you need a clean grill plate, you want to order a beer.
You can't just sit and wait.
Right. Dorado explains her journey in learning to loudly shout, "사장님," to get a waiter's attention. 사장님 literally translates to boss or owner.
For someone coming from the Philippines, the idea of shouting across a crowded room to summon a waiter feels incredibly jarring.
It feels wrong to her.
Very wrong. Dorado explains that in her home country, if you need the waiter, you make eye contact and you raise a hand completely silently. You just wait for them to acknowledge you.
Very patient.
Exactly. If they don't see you, you might actually physically stand up and walk over to them. Calling out with a loud voice is perceived as quite rude, almost demanding.
And Nanase admits she still struggles with this entirely. She says she's constantly fighting her ingrained Japanese instinct to quietly say, "sumimasen," which means, "excuse me."
Right, she feels deeply embarrassed to project her voice across a busy dining room.
This contrast is fascinating. We're looking at the internal conflict and the emotional toll of overcoming your native cultural programming.
It takes real effort.
Nanase persistent embarrassment versus Dorado's loud, successful localization reveals the profound psychological effort required to adapt.
Dorado admits she was very uncomfortable at first, too.
Oh, she hated it. It felt wrong. But because all her Korean friends did it so naturally, she forced herself to assimilate until it became second nature.
Okay, I have to admit, as an outsider, shouting for a waiter across a crowded restaurant sounds deeply obnoxious.
Doesn't it?
It feels like it would ruin everyone else's dinner. I mean, if you did that in a restaurant in London or New York, the entire room would turn and glare at you. Why is this loud assertiveness accepted in Korea?
It sounds obnoxious to Western ears, absolutely. And like Nanase said, it even sounds obnoxious to Japanese ears. But you have to look at the acoustic and service design of a K-BBQ joint.
The acoustics.
Yeah, first look at the acoustics. You have cylindrical metal tables, roaring exhaust pipes pulling smoke down from the ceiling, meat sizzling violently, and the clatter of 100 stainless steel chopsticks and soju glasses.
It is really loud in there.
A quiet sumimasen, or a silently raised hand, is going invisible in that environment. Nobody is going to see or hear you.
That makes sense.
Second, look at the service design. In Western restaurants, waiters are trained to hover. They walk past your table constantly, interrupting your conversation to ask, "How is everything tasting? Do you need more water?"
They're trying to anticipate your needs.
Exactly. In Korea, the philosophy is different. The waiters leave you in absolute privacy until you explicitly summon them. They are not assigned to one specific table. They are managing the flow of the entire room.
Ah, I see. So the loud vocalization is a feature, not a bug.
Yes.
By shouting sajangnim, you are actually respecting the restaurant workers' time.
Exactly. You are allowing them to work efficiently without forcing them to constantly scan the room for a silent cue. You are actively keeping the restaurant flowing.
It appears rude to an outsider, but internally it is the highest form of cooperative efficiency.
That is exactly the framework. You are reducing the friction of the transaction. And calling them sajangnim is a sign of respect.
Even if they aren't the boss.
Even if the person serving you is a college student working part-time and clearly not the actual owner, calling them boss elevates their status while simultaneously demanding their immediate attention.
That's a highly efficient, mutually respectful social contract.
It really is.
What's interesting is that Dorado notes, in the Philippines, they use terms of endearment like sister or brother to address service workers. Conceptually, that's very similar to the Korean use of familial terms like oon-nee, but the delivery mechanism silent patient respect versus a vocal immediate demand is completely inverted.
Right. This specific need to adapt your volume, your timing, and your behavior to match the surrounding acoustic and cultural environment is a perfect micro-example of a much broader, absolutely essential Korean survival skill.
It's just one part of the puzzle.
Adapting your volume is just one frequency on a much larger radar system. And that brings us to the concept of Nunchi.
Nunchi. It is perhaps the single most critical concept discussed in their entire interaction.
I would say it's arguably the most important skill for anyone living in Korea.
Definitely.
The hosts transition into this by discussing the overall speed of life. They contrast Korea's famous Pali culture, which literally means hurry up, with the more relaxed island time of the Philippines.
The contrast is huge.
Pali-Pali isn't just a phrase, it's the rhythm of the entire country. It's the speed of the internet, the speed of the delivery drivers, the speed at which the subway doors close.
Nanase points out that the global image of the Philippines is that everyone is cheerful, relaxed, and time flows slowly.
Very chill.
Yeah. Coming from that environment into the absolute high-velocity, hyper-modern environment of Seoul must have been an incredible shock to Dorado's system.
She admits she was deeply flustered at first.
I would be too.
Navigating that sheer speed requires immense situational awareness. You can't just meander. You have to know what's happening around you at all times.
And that situational awareness is the definition of Nunchi. It is the vital skill of reading the room.
Reading the room.
Yes. It is a sixth sense for understanding the atmosphere, anticipating what is needed before it is spoken, and adjusting your behavior immediately to maintain group harmony.
It's knowing when to speak up.
Right, and knowing when to stay quiet and when to just get out of the way. Dorado explicitly states that developing Nunchi is the ultimate how-to for survival as a foreigner.
Give us a relatable example of what a lack of Nunchi looks like.
Okay, a lack of Nunchi is the person who keeps talking about themselves when everyone else at the table is clearly putting on their coats to leave.
Oh, I know that person.
We all do. It's the person who orders the most expensive item on a shared bill without asking. But for Dorado and Nanase, they don't just have to read a normal room. They have to read a Korean room, where the subtle cues, the sighs, the glances, the way a senior person sets down their chopsticks are entirely different from the cues in their home countries.
It's a completely different rule book.
Exactly. What's remarkable is the shared, almost exhausted relief between the two women when discussing this. The emotional tax of constantly having to read the room, especially in a foreign language, is immense.
It must be exhausting.
Nanase even argues that Japan requires even more intense reading of the room than Korea does in non-drinking situations, a concept the Japanese call reading the air.
Reading the air. That's a great phrase.
Their shared laughter over this topic is a massive release valve. It is a mutual recognition of the hidden labor required just to navigate their daily lives.
And that hidden labor extends heavily into the language itself. We have to unpack the linguistic minefield Dorado describes because it is hilarious but also highly stressful.
The K-drama trap.
The K-drama trap. She explains the trap of learning Korean primarily from K-dramas before arriving in the country.
This is a critical point for anyone trying to learn a language through media. You think you're learning how people speak, but you're actually learning how characters speak.
Right. Dorado notes that K-dramas are highly dramatic, obviously, and they rely heavily on banmal, which is informal speech.
Yes, she jokes that Filipinos watching gay dramas learn phrases like, "Hey, do you want to die?" or "Get out of my way."
Which is so funny. That is fantastic for a dramatic television climax when the wealthy heir is confronting his rival. Right?
Absolutely.
But it is practically useless and socially dangerous for a foreigner trying to make a good first impression at a bank or a restaurant.
Exactly. Using banmal with a stranger is like calling a federal judge dude in the middle of a trial.
That would not go well.
No, it's jarring. When you arrive in Korea, you quickly realize that practically every initial interaction requires no pamal, the formal, polite form of speech.
So the TV shows lie to you.
Basically. The discrepancy between the hyper-dramatic, informal language of television and the highly structured, polite reality of everyday Korean society is vast. Using banmal with a stranger or someone older than you is a severe violation of that social hierarchy we discussed at the very beginning with the birth years.
It all connects perfectly back to finding your coordinates on the map. If you don't have the right coordinates, you use the wrong language, and the interaction completely breaks down.
Exactly.
Dorado says she had to deliberately overwrite the informal language she learned from television and rigorously master the formal greetings and polite sentence structures.
It's like unlearning a bad habit.
She admits that achieving perfect, highly polite formal speech is still incredibly difficult, but her foundational understanding of when to use it allows her to navigate safely.
Her mastery of these social nuances, the nunchi, the formal language, the grilling etiquette, the restaurant volume, is astonishing given she has only been in Korea for 2 years.
Only 2 years.
Most people take a decade to internalize these mechanics, but we learned that her rapid acquisition didn't happen in a vacuum. It was forged in a highly specific, extremely demanding, high-stakes crucible.
Which brings us to the hype, the grind, and the reality of viral vulnerability.
Her career arc is wild.
How did she learn so fast? Dorado details her incredible rise to fame, and her background is genuinely phenomenal. She is largely self-taught.
Yeah.
She learned to play the keyboard at 5. She taught herself guitar at age 7 entirely by watching YouTube tutorials.
That's incredible.
By the time she was 10 years old, she auditioned for Asia's Got Talent.
And she didn't just audition, she unexpectedly made it all the way to the finals at 10 years old.
At 10.
She mentions her parents' incredible support, how her father would work his online job while physically traveling to Singapore just to watch her perform. It is a beautiful story of immense raw talent supported by a strong familial foundation.
Fast forward a few years, she is active as a singer in the Philippines, writing self-composed songs in her bedroom during the pandemic.
Just making music.
She releases them and she goes massively viral on TikTok. Her voice, her style, it just catches the algorithm perfectly. And this leads to a direct message from a Korean entertainment agency asking to collaborate.
This detail is wonderful because it is so human. She sees the message from a foreign agency offering to bring her to Korea, and she immediately assumes it is a scam.
Of course. You get a DM saying, "Come to Korea and be a star," you assume someone is trying to steal your identity.
I would delete it immediately.
Same. But she takes an online meeting, realizes the executives are legitimate, and decides to take the massive leap.
Very brave.
She wants to see what the legendary, rigorous Korean trainee life is actually like. She wants to expand her audience. And that ambition leads her directly to the television show Sing Again 4.
This television show is the key to understanding her rapid language acquisition. It wasn't just a singing competition, it was a forced high-stakes immersion environment.
Let's dissect this method of learning because it is demanding.
Oh, Gary.
Before she came to Korea, she studied one-on-one with a tutor for 4 hours a day. But a classroom is safe.
You can make mistakes.
You can pause, you can ask questions in English. Television's not safe. On Sing Again 4, she had to conduct incredibly long, entirely unscripted interviews in Korean for every single round of the competition.
She explains that the first round interview took almost an hour. Because her conversational Korean was not natural yet, she had to rely heavily on a prepared script in her head.
Just reciting from memory?
Right. But as the competition progressed and as she advanced, those interviews shortened to 30 minutes, then 20 minutes. She was surrounded entirely by Korean speakers, producers, directors, other contestants.
No safety net.
None. She could not fall back on English. She had to communicate her emotions, her musical choices, her background, entirely in a language she was still actively learning.
That is the ultimate test of adaptation. When the cameras are rolling, when the producers are asking you questions, and your entire career is on the line, your brain has no choice but to adapt.
It's sink or swim.
The necessity of the situation forces the language into your active memory. The formal speech, the honorifics, the sentence structures, they stop being abstract concepts on a flashcard and become immediate, critical survival tools.
And this intense public exposure, while incredible for her career, leads to a very sharp contrast in her life. We see the hype surrounding her immense talent, but we also see her profound humility and vulnerability when dealing with the bizarre reality of fame.
That brings us to one of the most memorable and honestly funniest moments of the interview, the swimming pool story.
This story is amazing.
Na나세의 asks if people recognize her on the street now that she's been on national television. Dorado says yes, but then shares a story that perfectly captures the jarring, completely unglamorous reality of sudden public recognition.
She's an avid swimmer. It's one of her hobbies. She tells Nanase that she was at a public swimming pool, taking a shower in the communal washroom after her swim.
Very vulnerable setting.
Yeah. Suddenly, an older woman recognizes her. And this woman doesn't just quietly whisper. She shouts Dorado's name at the top of her lungs. Dorado!
Right in the middle of a communal shower. Everyone in the room turns to look.
It's awful.
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario for anyone, let alone someone who is already hyper-aware of their status as a recognizable foreigner.
Dorado physically covers her face while telling this story, laughing nervously at the memory. She expresses immense gratitude that fans recognize her and support her music. She's very clear about that. But the vulnerability of that specific moment is undeniable.
It's a loss of control.
Exactly. It highlights the total loss of anonymity that comes with viral success. You cannot control when or where the public will engage with you. Your private time is no longer entirely your own.
That story is hilarious, but it also underscores a deeply serious point. When you are dealing with the intense pressure of national television competitions, the relentless grind of the Korean entertainment industry, the unpredictable viral hype, and the sheer exhausting mental effort of navigating a fast-paced foreign culture in a second language, finding a sanctuary becomes absolutely essential.
You have to step away.
If you do not have a way to escape that noise, you will inevitably burn out.
Which brings us to the final segment of their meal, and the geographical and emotional escapes Dorado has found to maintain her balance in this high-velocity environment.
Nanase asks Dorado about her favorite places in Korea. Where does she go to recharge?
Yeah.
Dorado acknowledges the traditional, undeniable beauty of Bukchon Hanok village in Seoul. It is famous for its historic architecture, the beautiful traditional houses, and the aesthetic charm.
Very picturesque.
It's very Instagram-friendly, but she explicitly states that her ultimate escape from the intense, busy vibe of Seoul is a place called Ilsan.
Ilsan is a planned city located just northwest of Seoul. Dorado refers to it as a new city. Because Seoul is so dense, so vertical, and moves at such a relentless Pali-Pali speed, she actively seeks out the contrasting environment of Ilsan on her days off.
Let's point out the physical and geographical contrasts here. And actually, Ilsan is where we live, just across the Ilsan Lake Park, where a flower festival will soon be held.
Oh, that's right. It's beautiful there.
So I completely understand her perspective. When you walk around Ilsan Lake Park, you find quiet local cafes, you can drink a cup of coffee and just look at the water.
It's a different world.
The sidewalks are wider, there are fewer people rushing, the physical density drops dramatically, the noise level drops. It is a deliberate shift from a high-stimulation environment to a low-stimulation sanctuary.
We must focus on the emotional cool-down this geographical shift provides. Finding these quiet spots, like the park right by where you live, is a fundamental requirement for her mental prosperity.
It keeps her sane.
Exactly. The hidden labor of Nunchi, the constant formal language parsing, the pressure of performance, the shock of being recognized in a shower, it all generates massive psychological friction. Staring at the water in Ilsan is how she reduces that friction.
It's how she resets.
Yes. It is how she sustains her energy, maintains her identity, and finds joy amidst the chaos.
And brilliantly, beautifully, this geographical shift to a cooler, calmer place is mirrored perfectly by the culinary shift at their table.
The timing is perfect.
They have just finished eating massive amounts of sizzling, heavy, hot barbecue pork. They've been sitting next to a literal fire. And how do they conclude the meal? With Dorado's absolute favorite dish, naengmyeon.
Cold noodles. The arrival of the naengmyeon serves as the absolute perfect narrative resolution to their conversation and their meal.
It really does. Dorado insisted on ordering it right at the beginning of the meal. She explains that she loves it so much, she will sometimes invite a friend out for samgyeopsal, just so she has an excuse to go to a restaurant that serves proper naengmyeon at the end.
But her relationship with this dish wasn't immediate love. It was another hurdle to overcome.
Oh, she was confused by it.
She admits that her very first impression of naengmyeon was pure confusion. Coming from the Philippines, and being accustomed to hot, comforting ramen broth or rich stews, the idea of noodles served in an icy, freezing cold broth was baffling.
It breaks your expectations.
She tells Nanase she literally asked, "Why is it so cold?"
It is a culinary shock. But the cool down of eating icy naengmyeon right after the sizzling meat is a distinctly Korean dining rhythm. It's about thermodynamics as much as flavor.
Thermodynamics of food, yeah.
You heat the body up at the fire, the rich fat of the pork and the spicy sauce, and then you shock the system back into balance with the icy, acidic, refreshing broth of the noodles. It cuts through the grease perfectly.
It's a palate cleanser.
Dorado says that at first she didn't like it, but as she gradually became Korean, as she puts it, her palate completely adapted. The thing she once found confusing is now the staple she actively seeks out.
The meal concludes over these cold noodles. The two women have cemented a genuine, meaningful bond. They started by negotiating their ages and establishing formalities. They moved through their shared cultural shocks of Banchan and loud waiters. They discussed the deep vulnerabilities of sudden fame, and they arrived at a shared, quiet enjoyment of a cold dessert.
It's a full journey.
They even start planning their next trip together to the Han River.
It is a complete, beautiful arc of connection. So what does this all mean for us? If we synthesize the core takeaways from this entire deep dive, it becomes incredibly clear that adapting to a new culture is not simply a matter of translating vocabulary from one language to another.
Not at all.
It is not just memorizing flashcards or reading a guidebook.
It requires internalizing an entirely new rhythm of existence. It is about knowing the precise moments to lean into the Pali, the hurry-up culture, and knowing when you absolutely must retreat to the quiet of the lake in Ilsan to save your sanity.
You have to feel the rhythm.
It is understanding the exact tone and volume required to call out sajan-nim to ensure efficiency, while simultaneously knowing when to use highly polite, formal language to demonstrate respect to your own nee.
It is recognizing that taking the tongs to grill the meat is not a chore, but an act of service that builds vital social capital. It is understanding that covering your mouth when you laugh, or engineering a lettuce wrap so you can eat it in a single bite without unzipping the flavor profile, are not arbitrary, annoying rules.
So they have a purpose.
They are the hidden architecture of mutual respect. It is a continuous, active process of observing, adapting, and finding profound joy in the differences.
By observing Nanase and Dorado navigate this meal, we see that while the psychological effort to adapt is incredibly demanding, the reward is a profound increase in understanding and personal prosperity.
They figured it out.
They haven't just survived in a new country, they have built a bridge between Japan, the Philippines, and Korea right at that barbecue table.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over. We have spent this entire time looking outward, analyzing the mechanics of Korean society through the eyes of two highly observant visitors, but I want to turn that lens back on you.
Yeah, look inward.
Think about your own native culture. Think about the city you live in. What are the invisible, completely unwritten rules, the everyday samraps and sajangnim shouts that a foreigner arriving tomorrow would have to decipher using pure Nunchi just to get through a basic Tuesday?